Hey everyone, Coach Lori here with another session of Conversations with Courageous Cancer Warriors, and I am stoked about today's guest. I have to admit that I spent a lot of time on her really great website. So we're talking today with Melissa Adams, who was diagnosed at the age of 31 of genetic breast cancer. She's also an author of a book called Behind the Pink Ribbon, and also has a podcast by that same name. And one really wicked cool fact about her is that she is a dragon boat paddler, and she has a team that she coaches in Phoenix, Arizona called Phoenix Desert Dragons. Melissa, thank you so much for being here today. I am really excited.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I am so excited to be here with you too.
So you have a pretty amazing story. You want to talk to us a little bit about your cancer journey?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so long, so I will try to put it in a really nice, tight little nutshell. But like you had said, I was diagnosed when I was 31. It was a genetic invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 2, also ER/PR positive. The hardest part, I think, for me was the BRCA2 diagnosis, because that came from an estranged biological father. So that was quite a bit of a struggle for me. But I had a bilateral mastectomy, did several reconstructions just because I had some damage with radiation. And over the course of 7 years, I had 11 surgeries.
Oh.
So it was quite a lengthy process.
I mean, I've gone through 3 because I also had the same procedures, and I thought they were excruciating. So I can't even imagine what it's like for that many. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. It's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing that I could do. I mean, it was what it was, and I was trying to do everything that I could to just keep myself healthy. And many of them were due to either, I had capillary contracture due to the radiation that I had, and then I had to have the latissimus muscle removed. And then the radiation is the gift that keeps on giving,
right?
In my opinion. Yeah. So then it impacted the implant again several times. So I had to have swaps for that. And the other thing too is I was on tamoxifen for 5 years, and I do believe that the tamoxifen caused endometriosis. So I ended up having to have 2 laparoscopic surgeries for endometriosis.
So many of the people listening have followed me for some time, and they know that I just recently, about a month ago, against doctor's orders, removed myself from tamoxifen after almost 3 years of being on it. And it was really a debilitating drug for me. It had my anxiety go through the roof. Like, I just was not myself. So I'm a month out, and I could say that I finally feel like myself again. But, you bring up a good point of just, there's so many things that people do because we trust our physicians, and we should trust them, but there's also our alternatives that can be done. And is that something that you I don't know if that's been your experience, but did you go down that route of like looking for alternative therapies, or just like starting to question more as you went through the process?
I did. And I think, exactly what you said, tamoxifen for me was the thing that really led me to a different path. The only reason that I did tamoxifen for 5 years was because I was a part of a clinical trial, and I really wanted to be able to provide that information to help other breast cancer survivors in the future. Otherwise, I would have stopped early because I was just in so much pain. The endometriosis sat very close to my rectum. So anytime that I sat down, it was a sharp shooting pain. And so it really stole the quality of my life. But again, I really felt that it was so important to be able to guide therapies for other survivors in the future. So I did do a little bit more of looking into alternative options. I worked with a chiropractor and kinesiologist in Pittsburgh when I lived there years ago. And we did a number of different things. So we did, and she had a natural medication, and I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, that mimicked tamoxifen, but it didn't have the same side effects. So I took that for quite a while after getting off my tamoxifen.
Oh, that's really great. And that, you know, I'm not here to say don't follow doctor's orders. I'm just here to say just question. And especially for someone like myself who's worked in, you know, the healthcare field for 20 years, you have to be your own advocate, right? And thank you for sharing that, because it's so important for people to really be a stand for their care. And that's definitely something that you did for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's important too. And I always tell people, you know, my decision doesn't have to be your decision.
Yeah.
You know, it's your body. You know what's going on inside of your body. What happened for me may not happen for you, but you truly have to listen to your own body and make some of those decisions for yourself.
Absolutely. And so what was one of the biggest struggles that you had? You mentioned the BRCA2 diagnosis. Was there anything else? I mean, you've been through so much that's kind of a silly question, but how did you handle, you know, all the setbacks and all the surgeries and like still stay positive throughout it all?
Really, I think for me, well, the biggest struggle, to be quite honest with you, was having the BRCA2 mutation come from an estranged biological father. And the hardest part about that was I had gone to the doctor and said, you know, my grandmother died from ovarian cancer. I have an uncle with prostate cancer. I had, you know, this number of people that I knew about in my family that had some type of cancer. And he really said that my grandmother was too distant, that I had nothing to be concerned about. So that was a real struggle for me. And it still to this day is a struggle, because I hear so many people, the information for genetic cancers is just not out there. People don't understand it. And I would expect doctors to know more,
Yeah.
to know that you get two sets of genes, one from your mom and one from your dad. So I would say that was probably the biggest struggle emotionally. Physically, the biggest struggle was being 31, losing my breast. And the day that I was diagnosed, and I'm going to really try hard not to get emotional on this, but the day that I was diagnosed, I had four secretaries that came into my office after I got the phone call. And as soon as I was able to gather myself, the first thing I said to them was, who is going to love me now? You know, I didn't see that anybody was going to step into this and want to be a part of it. So those were the biggest struggles.
Yeah. And I definitely understand that. It's a hard thing to go through. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. In the same way. And I was like, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Even 13 years out, I mean, it's so hard to say those words and know that that was the space that I was in. I wasn't concerned about my life. I wasn't concerned of whether or not I was going to live or die in that moment. I was just worried about if I was ever going to be worthy enough for, you know, for somebody to look past all of that I was going to have to go through and love me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found myself, so ironically, my boyfriend that I have, you know, that I'm dating now, and it's years later, you know, we had just started dating. We were like maybe 6 months in, and this happened. And I remember looking at him and being like, you don't need to stay for this, because we did not plan on this. And, you know, it was very traumatizing for him as a caregiver. He was my primary caregiver. And even though we had known each other for 20 years, it was really, really difficult. And, you know, we went through our ups and downs with it. And one of my friends had said to me, you know, why don't you consider like just taking a step back from that from right now? And I remembered saying, I'm like, you know what? I love him. I don't want to lose him. And I can't bring myself to even start dating again, you know, with having to tell somebody, oh yeah, by the way, like, you know, I'm going to have scars across my chest, right? Like, it's really traumatizing, and it's something that people don't talk about.
No, we are left to figure out those parts of our life without any kind of support.
Yeah. And that's why, that's why this podcast is so important. And I'm really happy that you're on, because that's what we want to do in this forum is like, if we could help one person today be like, you're not alone, like reach out, we're here to talk to you. We've done our job today. It's kind of how I like to say it. But so physically and emotionally and like socially, there are definitely barriers to what you have gone through. What message would you like to share with others that may have gone through a similar experience?
Again, it's really kind of just what you talked about is you're not alone. And I think that's the most important part of it, is that there are people who have survived this. And many of us who, I'm 13 years out at this point, and I would say that, I love my life. It's different from what it used to be, but I love what it's become. And, I appreciate every single day. And I've met survivors who are 26 years out, and they are the people that give me hope. So while it seems so lonely, and especially when you don't have a support system around you, or you don't have people around you that have had that same experience, they don't know what you're going through.
Yeah.
And it can be so lonely. But there are so many of us that are out here that are willing to have conversations and just be open about our experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more. And let's talk about how you got into the dragon boating. I'm really excited about this.
It's my favorite thing in the world. Well, outside of maybe my husband, but so in terms of dragon boating, I was at the doctor's office and I was just pacing around because I didn't know what to do with myself. And I saw this postcard and I didn't know what it was. I'd never seen a dragon boat before, and it said, "Come paddle with us." And I was like, okay. So I emailed and said I was interested, and I went down that week and sat on the front of the boat with the coach and faced the 20 paddlers. So I could see, I can't even really describe that experience, but to see 20 paddlers, knowing that all of these women had also gone through breast cancer, was the most powerful experience for me. And it just totally shifted the trajectory of my recovery and of my life, really.
Oh, I love that, because one of the things that I've also struggled with, because my implants are sub-pec, is I don't have a range of motion, nor do I have the strength anymore like I used to. So to be able to see other survivors that have gone through something similar still be powerful in their bodies, and it definitely gives you hope, right? That you can eventually get there. Just take it one day at a time and keep fighting the good fight, right?
Yeah. Well, and because I found them in 2008, and because I had the radiation and it damaged the implant on that side, I had to do the latissimus muscle transfer, and I wasn't allowed to paddle. So I wasn't allowed to be there for another year. But for that year, it was knowing that was waiting for me that really kept me going. Yeah. Knowing that I was eventually going to be a part of this group, and, really find a way to do some of the things that I had done prior to. I had always been very active, and I wouldn't say necessarily athletic, but I was always very active, working out all the time. And, cancer really took that away from me. But I knew that getting into that boat would be another opportunity to kind of pull, get a part of that previous life back. Yeah. And my coach taught me more than, and she's not a survivor, but she taught me so much about myself. And one of the things that has always stuck with me is that cancer is never an excuse to not show up in life.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yes, you're totally right. Oh, that's a good one. You're absolutely right. And I don't want to say that people hide behind it, but there's so much fear with moving forward, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's unknown.
Yeah.
It's scary when it's unknown.
Yeah. And part of what I also feel that we need to do better as a community is to make it a safe space for people to reach out. Like so many people just stay in their silos, and they don't, for whatever reason, they don't want to reach out and be like, hey, I need some help. It's because it's hard, right? I would love to see a way for us to be able to do that better. And, one of the ways too, I think, is through podcasts. Now you have your own podcasts. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I do. I would like to comment as well and just say I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we are missing the aftercare component. There is so much focus on treating us medically, and that's great. We need that.
Mm-hmm.
We want our lives saved, but the aftercare, there's so much that's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for young people, like we don't know how to necessarily bring all those pieces of our life back together to rebuild something. And nothing is ever the same after it. So yeah, we definitely have to do something more as a community. So yes, I do have my own podcast. It is called Behind the Pink Ribbon. It came out before my book, but it genuinely was a spinoff of my book. So my book is my story over the course of 7 years. So it's long, but, I just thought, I'm sharing my story, but there are so many other stories that are behind the pink ribbon that don't get told, and they're all so different.
Mm-hmm.
So I started that podcast last August, and I think we're on like episode 73 at this point. But we bring on survivors, we bring on specialists. My plastic surgeon came on. I've talked about sex and grief, and I'll bring on organizations that support breast cancer survivors as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And it's so, so needed. And the topics that you've mentioned are important because it's what you deal with. We kind of touched on it earlier that you have a whole new body that you need to get used to. Like your old self is no longer. And things like being intimate and being okay with going to the gym, and like, for me, finding a sports bra that I could lift over my head while I was still restricted in movements is all so difficult. And people are just not talking about it. Or if they are, I haven't found them, and I would love to get involved in that, right? Like come and find me, because there's so much I'm 3 years out, and there's still so much that I feel that I need to get through. I don't want to say that it's never over, but there's always a new point of healing that you can do.
Absolutely. And even, 13 years out, there are things that, I'm finding myself struggling through. I had a full hysterectomy and oophorectomy because of the BRCA mutation. Mm-hmm. And, nobody talked to me about, how do I strengthen my pelvic floor?
Yeah.
What do I do if I want to have sex again?
Yeah.
Nobody said, like, for a lack of anything better, it's going to dry up and, stop functioning. Like nobody had that conversation with me.
Right.
And so I thought genuinely it was just something that I would have to accept. And then I started learning and digging, but mm-hmm. people shouldn't have to do that on their own. That information should be available to them. People should be informed. People should know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to, have another session with you where we could get into that conversation. I mean, why don't we do it? Let's just make it happen and bring on people and it's just so important. It's so important, especially like with tamoxifen, and when they're shutting your estrogen down, and like that's a side effect, it's just,
right.
There's so much more work we need to do. And then your book is also called Beyond the Pink Ribbon, which I love. Behind, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Which I absolutely love, because when the month of October comes around, like I'm like cringing, right?
Pink everywhere.
Yeah. And so where is your book available?
So there are a couple of places that people can find it. It is on Amazon as well as Amazon Kindle. Also Barnes and Noble picked it up, and it is also available on my website.
Awesome. And so how can people find you?
You can go to behindthepinkribbon.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Behind the Pink Ribbon. I'm also on Facebook at Behind the Pink Ribbon. If you search me, you'll find me.
Perfect. I love it. So I'm truly inspired by you, and this conversation was absolutely amazing. I just appreciate you, and I appreciate who you are for this community, and I cannot wait. You need to definitely send me some pictures or some video of this dragon boat, because I'm in love. I'm in love with the whole concept. So thank you so much for being here today.
I have one right here.
Oh, let me see.
Real convenient.
Oh my God, look at that. Now, is that you in the front right there?
With a tutu on. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. Wow.
Yeah, but I'll send you some more.
I would love it. I would love it.
Yeah.
I would love it.
Well, and I want to thank you so much for doing what it is that you're doing. And I would love to have you on my podcast.
Absolutely. I would love
share
that.
your story. But I think the work that we are doing as survivors is so important. And we need people who are willing to stay connected to the community to help those that will come after us.
Absolutely. I agree. And thank you. You are a blessing.
Thank you.